This is the beginning of my first RNA for the second half. So I'm just going to be talking about this week's 3 readings, which were the Confessions of an Ivy League Frat Boy, the Nation of Wimps and Alcohol's Hold on Campus. I'm trying to keep these to like 10-ish minutes, give or take, just so that they upload right and all the other stuff. So I'll just go ahead and start. So when it comes to the frat boy one, I had a very interesting experience with Greek life my last year being an RA. I had an entire fraternity on my floor. They essentially had taken over one of the floors in my building because they didn't have a house. And so I had a very upfront experience with Greek life without really being in Greek life ever. And they talked to me an extent about hazing. They were a fairly new chapter, so they didn't really have a history of hazing or anything like that. But from what they told me, hazing was a very popular thing in the Greek life community at my undergrad. It never really was talked about though. So if it was happening, I never saw it as an RA almost. It was much more common with our multicultural like fraternities and sororities, and I think it was because they weren't as like rule abiding as some other ones were, because there were a bunch of other rules that came into play for like other stuff. So yeah, whatever. So with this, I was just really grossed out by most of the stuff. So because like I said, I'd never gone through hazing of any kind really myself, and so I never really realized the extent of what hazing could be to other people. And it was just kind of disgusting seeing the kind of things that the guy had to go through, and I'm just not really going to talk about them too much. But so I'm just going to talk about hazing as like a whole when it comes to the communities that like participate in hazing. I believe that like hazing is not just a singular thing to Greek life. I think a lot of different organizations haze. Student organizations I know haze. As an RA, like there were some staffs at my undergrad who would haze, just like doing random things. It was like going on an offline floor in the dark, like stuff like that, but that was still hazing, I guess. So it's just very fascinating to me that we always put hazing on Greek life like it's a Greek life only problem. And I think we kind of talked about it in class before. But it's just very fascinating to me that it's only ever seen as a Greek life problem when it's honestly, I feel like a humanity problem. I don't know if that's the correct way of saying it, but yeah. And I think about a lot is like, what happens if we stop hazing? Given that is a good thing because it saves countless people from having to endure the humiliation of being hazed and possibly being injured, at the worst killed because of hazing. But like, what does that mean for when the students who've already been hazed no longer get to haze? And is that going to create a divide within the organization? And maybe that divide's a good thing, but I could definitely see it being like, oh, you like didn't get hazed like I did, so you didn't really earn your place here. So yeah, I don't know. Hazing is a very like weird topic, and I feel like it needs to be talked about more outside of Greek life, because honestly, sometimes people are meaner when they're outside of Greek life for this stuff, because you get less rules and less things to like hold you back essentially. So yeah, I don't have a solution to hazing. I don't think anyone does. But I do think it needs to be talked about more outside of Greek life. So I'll go ahead and move on to A Nation of Wimps. So this one was a very interesting one. I was originally going to be I thought I was going to be very irritated with the article just because of the title, but I guess you can't like judge a book by its like cover, and I think that's true with like articles. You can't really judge them by what their title is. Like obviously the author titled this because like they wanted someone to click on it to see what it is, so like people would read it. Something really fascinating that I saw in there was she said, when kids engage in their own play, parents become alarmed. And this was like a very like throwaway quote, probably not throwaway. She was talking about play and like kids playing doctors and like being curious about like others' bodies and stuff like that. But it just made me think about how a lot of times when I see my students do something that they think that their parents aren't going to like, they really freak out. Like they literally are terrified almost of like doing something that they think their mom or dad won't like. And I feel like a lot of the times when children go against what parents say or want, they freak out, because I feel like a lot of the generation of parents now see their child as an investment. And maybe this is just from like my own family's experience, because like my mom has definitely like been like you're an investment, like you're like an investment in the future, and like you are an extension of me and all that other stuff. But I feel like my mom is a very standard like Generation X parent, and so I've seen it a lot with like other parents. They want their child to do as they say, and a lot of the times they are scared of their child like being on their own, because they've done so much for them for so long that they just don't know how to like let them do their own things, because they don't want them to mess it up, because if they mess it up then they're gonna have to come by and fix it. So they might as well just do it themselves so they know it will get done right. It's almost like a perfectionist personality. I do think that students nowadays are becoming more and more reliant on their parents to help them through college. Just like for me, I answer more questions from parents than I think students do, than I think I do with students. Most of the time when I deal with room moves, I have parents calling me and I tell them I can't answer any of their questions. Essentially, they have to be the ones to tell their child they have to call me, and then I have to have the child tell the parent everything, because I can only talk to the child. And I feel like sometimes families won't let their child